Hello, welcome to our channel. My name is Usman. Today we're going to be doing a comparison between two gimbals, the DJI Ronin-SC versus the new WEEBILL-S from Zhiyun. Now, I owned the previous version of this gimbal, which was the WEEBILL LAB, and I loved it because of the form factor. It was tiny, you could put two handles onto it and use it in like a two-handle grip set style, and I love that gimbal. However, when DJI released the Ronin-SC, I actually replaced my WEEBILL LAB in favor of this gimbal for one reason, and that is the footage. The Ronin-SC produced much better looking footage, far more stable looking footage than the WEEBILL LAB, and because of that, I got rid of that one, and this has been my main gimbal since it came out, essentially. Recently, Zhiyun released the WEEBILL-S, and I wanted to see how these two gimbals compare to one another. So yeah, in this video, we're going to do a comparison and see how much of an improvement this is over the previous version and how it compares to my current gimbal, the Ronin-SC. Okay, so first thing, let's talk about the design and usability factors between both of these gimbals. So let's just talk about the WEEBILL-S first. Now, the WEEBILL-S is a bit of an upgrade from the WEEBILL LAB. In fact, quite a bit of an upgrade, because this can now hold much heavier, larger cameras, and that's something which I think a lot of people are going to find quite useful. The weight capacity, if I'm not mistaken, has been increased as well, and the fact that it's still tiny. It's still about the same size, and I don't know about the weight, but definitely in terms of the size, it's very similar to the WEEBILL LAB. So people who love the WEEBILL LAB, I think, are gonna like the WEEBILL-S. It is a little bit more expensive, so there is that to consider, but it's a good upgrade. There are a couple of things that they could have updated, like the buttons. I mean, the buttons on this suck. I hated it on the WEEBILL LAB, I hate it on the WEEBILL-S, and you know, it's just one of those minor things that they could have updated. Like the joystick is just terrible. I never use it because it's just horrible to use. The usability of that is just crap. But it does have a screen, and the screen is actually quite useful. Lock mechanisms, same as the other one. They have updated where the lock mechanisms are, which, you know, it's not really an advantage or disadvantage, because that just depends on whether you get used to one side or another. But the lock mechanism still, again, very useful, and they've just kind of refined everything and made it a little bit better. So I like the fact that they've updated this gimbal and just made it all the more better than what it was. The Ronin-SC, now this is the gimbal that replaced my WEEBILL LAB, so it has to be a great gimbal for it to replace one of my favorite mini gimbals that I was using for such a long time. And honestly, it is. There are loads of things to love about this gimbal. It's got lock mechanisms, same as the WEEBILL LAB, same as the WEEBILL-S, and that's something that makes the usability factors extremely useful. Now, it is a lot taller, it is a lot bigger than the WEEBILL LAB, WEEBILL-S is. However, in terms of transporting this gimbal, this is actually easier to transport than the WEEBILL-S is. And the reason for that is because you can take the top section off the gimbal, and your grip itself is completely separate. And that's something I love about this gimbal. It's one of the reasons why I find it so much easier to transport. Other thing is the dials, the buttons, they're just a lot better. It just feels a little bit more tactile. Doesn't have a screen though. Wish it would have had a screen. It sucks that it doesn't have a screen, but it's not a major issue. I don't think, in fact, it hasn't actually come in the way, but you know, having a screen would have been nice. Now, there are a few things that I really hate about this gimbal, like genuinely hate, not dislike, hate about this gimbal. First thing is the battery. Now, I love the fact that you can separate the two, and you've got a smaller, more compact system, so when it comes to transport, it's a lot easier. What I hate about this gimbal is the fact that the whole handle is the battery, and the only way to charge it is whilst it's connected to the gimbal, because the port is on the back of the actual motor section of the gimbal. That is the most stupid thing any company has ever done, ever in the history of gimbals, ever. Like DJI, if you're watching this, which numpty thought of that? That's such a stupid idea. Second thing is, this battery handle is expensive as hell. That is £110 to buy a replacement or buy a second battery. On the WEEBILL-S, it's like £15–20 to buy two separate batteries, and you've got a separate charger so you can charge multiple batteries at the same time. You don't need to connect it to the gimbal to be able to charge it. So the battery configuration, the way that they've set up the battery and the way that it connects and the way they charge, hate it so much, like every single time. Second thing I hate is this mounting section over here for the camera. When you mount the camera, the tilt and the roll are only controlled with one lock. So you have to balance the roll and the tilt at the same time, unlike the Weebill where you can lock one and the other and individually balance them. I really hate that. It just makes things a lot more difficult to balance your camera on this gimbal than it does with this gimbal. This is a heck of a lot easier when it comes to setup, when it comes to using. Just usability factors, this one wins every single time except for the buttons. The buttons suck. And the last thing I hated about this gimbal, because I don't hate it anymore because I don't have to go through it, is the original setup. The original setup time that you have to do, or the original crap that you have to go through to set up this gimbal, makes me want to throw elbows because I hated it. You have to like register for the freaking gimbal, like DJI. It's not a drone, it's a gimbal. Why do I have to do this nonsense bullshit freaking registering, signing up to this and connecting it to the app just to use the gimbal? I hate that about DJI, and I think that, you know, they've just got this really weird mentality about using their equipment, and I really don't like that. This thing, take the batteries out, put it in, switch it on, done. And that's why I love the Zhiyun gimbals. I just really enjoy them. But the footage from the WEEBILL Lab was just a little bit sucky compared to this. Not sucky overall, just compared to this. And that's why I switched, because the footage is the main thing. And if this gimbal is better when it comes to the footage, I'm getting rid of this, I'm sticking with this. But that's still yet to be seen. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna compare the footage that we can produce between both of these gimbals. And yes, I am a little biased, I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, although I paid for this with my own money, I'm kind of rooting for this one. Now, if this doesn't produce the goods, I'm still gonna recommend this because footage above everything else. Like these other gripes, they're just whatever. The footage is king. But I'm hoping this gimbal is better. So anyway, let's go out, let's shoot some clips and see what kind of results we can produce. So for the footage, we did some simple tests like the one here with the Ronin-SC, just a quick walk and a slight pan, and the Ronin-SC does a great job. Compare that to the WEEBILL-S, and the WEEBILL-S does a good job except for when it comes to the pan where it's a little bit jerkier in comparison. Putting them both side by side and you can see how well each of them perform. I'm gonna say the Ronin-SC does slightly better, especially when it comes to the panning. For the second test, I did something which was a little bit more complex where I used both gimbals. Like this one was shot with the Ronin-SC and I just walked around a net. And here with the WEEBILL-S, I tried to do the same kind of maneuver. And I find that both gimbals did a fantastic job in this particular scene. Putting them side by side, and you can see that there's a little bit of jerkiness on the WEEBILL-S, but it's not significant. The Ronin-SC is a little bit smoother, but just a tiny bit. For the final test, we did something which I find quite troublesome with a lot of gimbals, and that is doing a close-up shot. So this was with the Ronin-SC. So we're just going in and out with a subject very close to it and seeing what kind of results we get. And for this test, I found the Ronin-SC to be slightly worse in comparison to the WEEBILL-S. The WEEBILL-S was just a little bit better when shooting close-up subjects. So here's the thing, I'm actually finding it really difficult picking between both of these gimbals because both gimbals are fantastic options, and I hate the fact that I can't pick one over the other because that's essentially the point of these types of videos. I mean, comparison video, at the end of it, you draw your conclusions and then you say which one you think is better or which one you recommend over the other. But I really can't do that, and this might be a bit of a cop-out, and I apologize for that, but I'm genuinely struggling to pick one over the other, and there are a few reasons why. The WEEBILL-S, for example, it's quite a good update from the WEEBILL Lab. I mean, the WEEBILL Lab was good, but the WEEBILL-S is just that much better. The footage is a lot better, it can hold larger, heavier camera systems, and for that reason, if you've got the WEEBILL Lab, I'd say yeah, definitely, the WEEBILL-S is a much better option. The WEEBILL-S is also a better and more practical option when it comes to the usability side of things compared to the Ronin-SC, especially because you can go into underslung mode, you can get dual handle options with the WEEBILL-S versus the Ronin-SC, and the fact that you can hold larger, heavier camera systems more effectively on the WEEBILL-S than you can on the Ronin-SC. However, the Ronin-SC still produces slightly better looking footage. The WEEBILL-S is a big update from the WEEBILL Lab, but the Ronin-SC is still slightly better in comparison, and as I mentioned earlier in this video, footage is king, and that's essentially why you're getting these gimbals. You want to be able to produce the best quality footage. So the Ronin-SC still kind of edges it out. And that's where I'm having the problem, because they're close when it comes to footage. I mean, the Ronin-SC is better, but it's not like massively better. However, some of you might value that over some of the practical features. And personally, I'm kind of going backwards and forwards between those two aspects. Like, do I want something which is more user-friendly, or do I want better results? And that's the problem that I'm having. And because of that, I'm finding it really difficult picking between the two. The great news is the fact that if you buy any of these gimbals, I'm going to say you're going to be extremely happy with the results that you're going to be able to produce with them, because both gimbals are brilliant. And we're getting to a stage where gimbals are so good that comparing them we're splitting hairs, really. We're really splitting hairs. And I just checked the price online, and it looks like they're both very similarly priced on B&H. So price is no longer, or might not be, a factor between these two gimbals. So yeah, that's the struggle that I'm having at the moment. I can't pick between the two, and I'm going to leave it to you guys. So which gimbal do you think is the better option? Do you think the Ronin-SC is the better option, even though it's a little bit less practical in my view, but the footage is better? Or do you think that you'd rather have something which is a little bit more practical, and then maybe just smooth out some of the issues in post with adding a little bit more stabilization? I don't know. Love to know your thoughts. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe. I'd love to have a discussion with you guys in the comments, and let me know what you guys think. But yeah, that's my cop-out conclusion, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you.